Welcome to 3 Count Commentaries. Today we're going to talk about Impact Wrestling's Under Siege, which was May the 26th, 2023. We're going to do a super review where I mix a review of the Go Home show with the actual pay-per-view event itself in order to provide a little bit more context. This is really needed for an Impact show, because we don't follow Impact weekly on this channel. So the Impact fans need to get a little oomph to make sure that they fully understand the jokes and other things that are going on as I go through the pay-per-view. So as the way this works is I use the pay-per-view as a spine essentially, and I'll add context as needed from the Go Home show and any other episodes if I can remember them. But this also is going to be a review of the Go Home show as well. So we're going to start with the pre-show because that's where the show begins. Match 1 was the Coven versus the Death Dolls. Now this sounds familiar. They've wrestled 100 times, but this is different because the Death Dolls consist not of Rosemary and Jessica, or Taya and Jessica, or Rosemary and Taya. It consists of Courtney Rush and Jessica. But who in the hell is Courtney Rush? Now let me tell you a story about this, because I didn't understand this at all. I didn't get it. All right, I was like, what the hell is going on? For starters, Courtney Rush is Rosemary. Rosemary went over to the Undead Realm a couple episodes back for something or other. I don't even remember anymore. Then Jessica had to have a match on the Go Home show with Taylor Wilde. But she was worried about Rosemary because all of the sand in the hourglass means as long as she was supposed to be in the Undead Realm was not out yet. So she was waiting for Rosemary when her match basically began. And because she was distracted, she lost the match pretty quickly. Taylor Wilde defeated Jessica on the Go Home show in mere seconds. You know, considering Jessica's literally twice the size of Taylor Wilde, I guess you would have to have some kind of reason for Taylor Wilde to win. So after the match, Taylor Wilde and Kylan King decided they were going to beat up Jessica, and so they did. And then all the sand left the hourglass. The door of the Undead Realm opened, and somebody walked out in a pair of Chucks. You know, the old Converse shoes. Music starts to play, and Courtney Rush comes to the ring. And the first thing I'm saying is, did they sign yet another girl? I mean, Impact just signs random women, and then they pop up out of nowhere. And then I looked a little bit closer, and I was like, that looks like Rosemary with no makeup. So after Rosemary fights off the Coven, she and Jessica hug, and then they immediately go into the back where they fully explain. Well, not fully, because that would make too much sense. They kind of explain what's been going on here. So Courtney Rush was possessed by Rosemary, and she has been possessed by Rosemary for the last 7 years. And she's not really supposed to be here, but since she is, it means she gets to go on an adventure. So then she asked Jessica to go on this adventure with her. Jessica, of course, agreed. Then Jessica asked her to be a death doll, which Courtney Rush agreed. And that's how we got to this pre-show match here at Under Siege. Now, this is a non-title match. I don't know why it's non-title. That part was not fully explained. But let's talk about this Rosemary demon possession thing. Look, that's the least shadiest, craziest thing that they've done. You know, somebody being possessed by a demon. Okay, fine. Rosemary was a lot like Venom. All right, where she always used the word we. And it makes sense now because there was another person inside of there. And this other person is Courtney Rush, who knew that Rosemary existed and knew that Rosemary was using her body. And said Rosemary was using my body for the last 7 years. And so now Courtney Rush is more of a punk rock character. Fishnets, Daisy Dukes, jackets, that kind of thing. She looks a lot more normal. All right. Now, when I first saw this, I laughed aloud. I was laughing. Boy, this entertained the hell out of me. And then I thought about it and I was like, you know what? Impact needs to build Rosemary her own wing of the Hall of Fame. All right. All the stuff you need to get somebody with the patience of Job and the pen of William Shakespeare or Stephen King to sit down and explain to everybody all the crazy stuff Rosemary has been doing for the past decade. I'm talking from the Dragon Ball Z spirit fights to her ability to teleport somehow, all the crazy stuff she's been doing. You need to explain that to people. Impact has just let her do whatever she wanted. It literally doesn't matter what she wants to do. They've been letting her do it. And I'm going to tell you, on this occasion, at this point in time, I like this shit. All right? When she came out as a completely different person, it was a setup very, very similar to the Three Faces of Foley, where they focus on the shoes. How, when Dude Love made his appearance, it was a focus on his boots. It was the exact same thing when Courtney Rush came out. Some people didn't know who it was. I think most people didn't know. I would imagine this was her name before she came to Impact and started doing Rosemary. And so a lot of people might not have seen this character before. So it was refreshing. Rosemary is doing some stuff that is really refreshing. She's doing goofy shit too. No, don't get me wrong. She's doing goofy stuff. But this is refreshing. She completely revamped her character just by dropping the Rosemary portion. Because Rosemary had done so much that you did kind of need a break from it. Now, it was a bit of a rip on Su Yung, who when Su Yung was wrestling in Impact, she often did the Su Yung is a demon that kind of controls her body or something like that. It's just kind of the same thing. And wrestlers do this stuff. All right, let's not go too deeply into it. So I'm actually very interested. Now, her just being tossed back into the Death Dolls, I don't know about that part, but this is basically a completely fresh situation now because it's not regular old Rosemary. It's somebody completely different who wrestles differently, and I enjoy that. So I was hooked. When I saw this Courtney Rush thing, I was like, I'm interested. And that's really what made me watch the show, because I'm like, oh my goodness, this fucking rules. All right, this is one of the two things on this show that I was like, this fucking rules, I'm with it, Now, Courtney Rush defeats Taylor Wilde on the pre-show. She beats her by submission with a sharpshooter. Not a very good sharpshooter, but she uses it to win the match. So I'm guessing they now get a title shot. I mean, they defeated the champions by submission. Kylan King had also lost maybe 2 weeks ago to Trinity in a singles match. So both of them are losing singles matches. Now they lost a tag team match. Doesn't bode very well for your booking of your Knockouts tag team champions. The second match on the show also featured a drastic character change. Dirty Dango versus Joe Hendry. Now this also goes into the Go Home show. So Dirty Dango, they did a story a couple of weeks ago. Santino got attacked from behind. Dirty Dango decided he was going to do some investigations to figure out what happened. Long story short, everybody figured out it was Dirty Dango. It was stupid. Like the evidence was he was missing some chest hair, and it was his missing chest hair that was the evidence against him. It was real dumb. It was real retarded. But the heel turn in itself, the new character for Dirty Dango, is basically Undertaker. Now, when I say Undertaker, I don't mean he's rolling his eyes in the back of his head. There's gongs and caskets. I mean, he is Undertaker when Undertaker was on that podcast talking about when men were men. That's Dirty Dango's new gimmick. is talking about the Gratitude Era and how modern wrestlers are not real men like they were in the locker rooms when he was coming up. And it cut this promo on the Go Home show. That was, for starters, he was drinking in between these promos. And this is what made it so much fun. Because it's clearly he's mocking that whole when men were men thing. But it's a great character. So here's how it works. He's saying that he got tired of being just happy to be here. That's not who he is. And that when he grew up, there was a real locker room. There was men who were, focused on being the best. Men who, chased girls and all this kind of stuff. But these guys nowadays, all they care about is their social media. They care more about their social media than they do about their crowd reactions. And it says that this might get them some heat, but they're not going to say anything to my face. They're just going to tweet about me. And then he says that people come to see stars, and he's a star, and that it doesn't matter if he doesn't love the business. People know that he's a star, and that's who they come to see. Then he says the last indie show he was at, he took more pictures with the boys than he took with fans, which I This is great. So then he asked her the question why he attacked Santino. And he said that when he came to Impact, he thought Santino was one of the boys, a guy like him. And then he saw Santino pull out the Cobra, and he said, nah, this is 2010. He's not one of the boys. So Santino let him down by being a goof. And that's why he attacked him from behind. And then he said Joe Hendry, he thought Joe Hendry had potential. He thought Joe Hendry could be one of the boys. But Joe Hendry's just happy running around with his toy belt. And since it's just a toy belt, he'll be glad to take it from him. So this leads to our pre-show match, Dirty Dango versus Joe Hendry. And I got to tell you, Joe Hendry is fun. Him being in the middle of this storyline works for me. I don't understand why Santino's got to be in the middle of it, but whatever. But Joe Hendry being in this situation is good. They had a fairly solid match. Dirty Dango's new gimmick is basically him not giving a fuck, where he's basically like some mixture of Orange Cassidy and bitter old wrestler, where he kind of does things in a very lackadaisical, but he still wrestles a very technical style. So I'm really enjoying the Dirty Dango thing. This is another big plus for me. This fucking rules. All right. If he can continue this gimmick of basically criticizing the boys for being lazy and criticizing the boys for being soft, I like this. That fucking works for me. Let me tell you, I fully enjoy that. So you're 2 for 2 when it comes to Impact and storytelling devices. And all they did was tweak some character, or they completely overhauled Rosemary, and they changed Dirty Dango. So they're doing something different with people that we already know. And that's really what wrestling is. These guys have been around for so long. They're doing something different with them. Joe Hendry, when he cut a promo before this match, he talked about Dirty Dango having a new persona, a new personality, and saying that, or he had an identity crisis, as he called it. He said that's not a surprise. This guy who went from being a ballroom dancer to a police officer, he was a detective, he was a doctor. He's like, what am I going to get? Who am I going to fight tonight? And so Dirty Dango comes out there, and Dango gets disqualified. He hits him in the nuts right in front of the referee. Starts beating him up. Santino runs out there to save Joe Hendry. And so Dango doesn't lose. Dango, he loses technically, but he doesn't get pinned. And so this is fine. This works. I don't dislike this. Santino later said he was going to punch Dirty Dango's lights out for attacking him, but said that he took up the director of authority job, and he had promised to be impartial, but he can't be impartial for a guy who attacked him. Okay, understood. Now, you would think the rest of this show would have good enough storytelling that this would make sense? The answer to that question would be no. The rest of the show was okay. But the two major things that I really liked were on the pre-show, as far as the two character changes. Match one on Under Siege was Kenny King versus Nick Aldis. Now, this storyline is based off of Nick Aldis, of course, coming to Impact. And Kenny King was jealous of all the attention he was getting. So Kenny King starts whispering in the ear of some young wrestler named Sheldon Jean. Sheldon Jean ends up having the first match against Nick Aldis on TV a couple of weeks ago. He loses. But Sheldon Jean is a young black wrestler. He's from Canada. And Kenny King takes him under his wing as a protege. So the previous week, on the Go Home show, Nick Aldis joined commentary as Kenny King and Sheldon Jean wrestled Black Taurus and Crazy Steve of Decay. Now, Kenny King and Sheldon Jean defeated them as Kenny King pinned Crazy Steve. At that point, Kenny King got on the microphone and says that he was happy that Nick Aldis got a front row seat and that he's going to stick his boot up his ass. Nick Aldis is the one who said, look, you can't keep my name out of your mouth. I don't have to work my way up to face you. You have to work your way out of being a bitch. Then he threatens to fight both of them. And then Kenny King sends Sheldon Jean out there. And Nick Aldis ends up running him into the ring post. Then Kenny King flees. Of course, he's not going to fight Nick Aldis. And says that he's going to fight him the next day. Now, they have the match at Under Siege. Both of these guys have had better matches than this. It was fairly standard match. And of course, Nick Aldis, the new guy, won. He won with the Kingsland Cloverleaf. Sheldon Jean had distracted the referee at one point. So Sheldon Jean is a young guy. He apparently has an extensive history doing reality television. I think he said he did Big Brother in Japan, not in Japan, but in Canada. He had also done some other things in Canada. And now he's trying his hand at pro wrestling and Impact. I think their Anthem's headquarters is in Canada, I think. So basically to them, he's like a local wrestler. He's not terrible. He's clearly got a lot to, good ways to go. And I'm a fan of Kenny King and Nick Aldis. I am a fan of him too. This wasn't the best match that these two guys could have. I know they're a little bit older now, but I definitely expected more out of this match. Now, in terms of the story, I don't know if it's over now. It might seem to be over to me. Kenny King and Sheldon Jean might work as a tag team. That might be cool. I know Nick Aldis is destined for better things. So this was a little flat. I expected more from these guys, but whatever. So Masha Slamovich and Killer Kelly, they were fighting all along the crowd right after the Kenny King, Nick Aldis match. And apparently they're kindred spirits. This goes all the way back to the last pay-per-view where Killer Kelly became obsessed with Masha Slamovich. They had a match in which I believe Masha won. And I think they had a rematch. And I believe Killer Kelly just choked her out. Or it might have been the same match. And after she lost, Kelly just choked Masha out. But they've been fighting essentially every week. They just fight backstage. On the Go Home show, they fought backstage, and Killer Kelly ended up choking Masha Slamovich with an electrical cord. On the actual program, Killer Kelly choked Masha Slamovich with a chain. So this basically is all about Killer Kelly and her fighting fetish, and Masha Slamovich is the perfect person for her to let her aggression out on, because she can match her, and I guess she's obsessed with her from whatever that 10-person match they had with Billy Ray and all those people. So I've enjoyed this storyline too, because I really like Killer Kelly. She's so sexy. And Masha Slamovich is one of the better female wrestlers in the business. I actually got to see her live at the most recent GCW show. She is really good. I think I've seen her at House of Glory too. I think I may have seen some clips of her from House of Glory. Masha Slamovich is really good, So, and I like Killer Kelly, so this works. It kind of sucks that they weren't on the show proper. They didn't get a full match, but they were represented here by having a pretty long fight scene. That kind of separates the rest of the show here. So that was fine. The Design. The Design had a match with Sami Callihan, Rich Swann, and Jake Crist. Oh boy. So this goes back months because Sami Callihan has been embroiled with The Design. He finally got free from The Design. The last couple of weeks has been Sami Callihan asking Rich Swann for his help in dealing with The Design. Rich Swann finally decided to help him. On the Go Home show, Rich Swann defeated Alan Angels of The Design. Then he got jumped by The Design. Sami Callihan, of course, helped him. I think he brought a bat or something to that effect. And the bat got taken away from him, so they both got beat up. And it became a 6-man tag, and he had to find a third partner, and it ended up being Jake Crist. Now, Jake Crist is a guy who was from OVE, that really terrible stable that Warthog was the leader of. People were mildly okay with Jake Crist being the partner. I honestly didn't give a shit. I didn't give a damn about him then. I don't care about him now, and I don't care about this match. I don't like anybody in this match, so I didn't give a damn about this match. It was a bathroom break, and I was like, ugh, didn't care. But Sami Callihan and Rich Swann and Jake Crist were the victors. Yay. I guess everybody's happy. I'm not. It sucked. Next, Trinity versus Giselle Shaw. So after Trinity defeated Kylan King, she put out an open challenge for a match at the pay-per-view, and it ended up being answered by Giselle Shaw. So Trinity did a promo where she was talking about how exciting her debut was, how she was nervous, but the audience and the fans were so accepting, and that the energy brought her to tears. And she said she jumped in her first day, ended up being in the middle of this Jordan Grace, Deonna Purrazzo thing, but she also caught the attention of Giselle Shaw. Called Giselle Shaw a drama queen. I would call her a drag queen. Anyway, since Giselle Shaw had accepted the open challenge, she was willing to bring the fight, and it was fine. So Trinity versus Giselle Shaw. Trinity actually fits in Impact. Take that how you want, but her style, her fluidity, everything seems to be really paying attention here. I didn't really pay attention to her match with Kylan King, despite the fact that I actually do like Kylan King. This was a better match for I'm about to call her Naomi. For Trinity. She's also taken to doing interesting things with her ring gear. Not only is her ring gear very, very ugly, but she's also started putting stars in her hair. I guess it's creative. She's still doing the glow in the dark stuff, and it fits. But I don't know about the stars in the hair thing. It's distracting. But then again, you can only really see it when the lights are out. So, in this match, she hit a lot of her stuff. So she just basically had a standard match, and she didn't look completely out of place. She didn't look slower. She looked kind of crisp, and she won. She won the match with her new submission hold, which she called Starstruck. I forget what it's actually called, but it's a really complicated new submission hold that she does now. So Trinity won. Yay! As far as I'm concerned, shrug. I was far more excited about the pre-show matches than I have been about most of the things that have occurred on the show so far. Okay. The next match, Subculture versus ABC. Now, this is something. This is interesting. So, Subculture was not featured on the Go Home show. Instead, Chris Bay wrestled John Skyler of the Good Hands. Now, John Skyler, the Good Hands, they suck. They hang around with Brian Myers. They're absolutely awful. So, on the pay-per-view itself, Subculture, who is Flash Morgan Webster, Mark Andrews, and Danny Luna. This was a tag team that was put together by NXT UK. So they've been, it's a stable, technically, that was put together by NXT UK. And essentially they're just bringing the same act to Impact. And they get a title shot immediately, because that's what Impact does with tag teams. They bring you in and you get a title shot immediately. Fuck building things up. Fuck storytelling. You're here, you get a title shot immediately. Anyway, Subculture comes in. They cut a promo about, hey, everywhere they've gone, they've had to start from the bottom. But here in Impact, they actually get to start at the top, and they still have to prove themselves. And they sort of acknowledged that Mark Andrews had been there before as Mandrews. Remember that shit? What an awful time that was. But Mark Andrews had to acknowledge that he hadn't been in that Impact ring in 7 years. Was kind of worried about what was going on. The Good Hands appeared, said that the title shot should rightfully be theirs, but it was not because they suck. And so they had the match. And Subculture versus ABC, Miss Austin and Bay Club. They're not calling each other Bullet Club anymore. They're calling each other Austin Bay Club. So it's ABC. And let me tell you, I thought this was a pretty good match. As far as spot monkey shit goes, this was pretty good. I needed something to wash away the previous two matches. Because King and Aldis was all right. But Trinity and Giselle Shaw, I didn't care. I was just paying attention to Trinity. And I didn't give a damn about the design. And anything that Diener that's evolving him, I don't want anything to do with it. All right? It's all shit to me. I don't want anything to do with anything Diener's got anything to do with these days. So compared to that crap, this was A+ material. Well, at least A material. A- material. There's still some flippity doo dah stuff. So it was a fun, fast-paced tag team match between four sort of cruiserweight guys, and ABC wins because you don't always put the tag team titles on a brand new team. Impact, at least make them take you to dinner first. Don't just drop your panties immediately. Wait a minute, how did I get there? Oh, wait a minute. Let's back up a little bit. Let's get back into the show. Oh, Chris Bay also defeated John Skyler, but who cares? Of course he defeated John Skyler. John Skyler sucks. All right, match 5. For the X Division Championship, Trey Miguel defeats Chris Sabin. Now, Chris Sabin was named the number 1 contender. He had a match with Speedball Mike Bailey on Impact, the Go Home show, I should say. They had a hell of a match, to be quite honest. It was very, very solid. I didn't understand the point of it, considering it was face versus face, and Speedball wasn't going to be on this show because he's doing Best of Super Juniors over in Japan. And I've been trying to watch some of that stuff. I can't. It's too much wrestling. All right, it's way too much wrestling. I know that he exists over there, but I can't follow it. I can't follow. It's entirely too much. So Speedball lost to Chris Sabin. It was a very good match, though. He won with Chris Sabin won with the Cradle Shock. In this match with Chris Sabin and Trey Miguel had to cheat by doing an eye rake and then using a roll up. It was a very solid match. They're really doing a good job with this Trey Miguel heel turn, with him being slimy and sneaky and all this kind of stuff, and to hold on to the belt. Him wrestling former X Division champions. So I'm really enjoying the Trey Miguel experience, in terms of him being a heel now. And it's working out. I don't understand why he's still doing Enter the Spider-Verse stuff, but okay. It's okay. So Chris Sabin had 2 really good matches on this week. If you're a work rate guy, you might want to check out the Chris Sabin Speedball Mike Bailey match. It was very good. It was actually better than the match with Trey Miguel. All right, the 6th match on the show was a number 1 contenders match. Alex Shelley, Jonathan Gresham, Moose, Yuya Uemura, Frankie Kazarian, and Eddie Edwards in a 6-man match. Oh, they had been building this thing up for a while. These guys feel like they were completely picked at random, probably because they were. I honestly did not care about this. Alex Shelley won the match, and so he will be wrestling for the World Championship at Against All Odds. He defeated Yuya Uemura because, of course, he did. Who the fuck would lose to Yuya Uemura, a young Japanese wrestler who is still on excursion? Why is he a top contender for Impact's world title? Why? Moose was He seemed to be perennially in this position where he's a top contender, but he doesn't get the shot. From this entire group of people, I couldn't tell you who was the best choice. I can only tell you that I don't like the idea of Moose. Kazarian is washed. He's washed beyond all reason. I don't see why anybody even pick him. Eddie Edwards fucking sucks, and he got a donut around his waist. He's like he might float if he jumped in the ocean. And Jonathan Gresham, well, he's 4'6". You know, who the hell's taking him seriously as the world champion? So Alex Shelley was probably your best choice. This was also not very good. The only build up for this on the Go Home show was, I believe, a vignette that they showed where each guy got to talk about what they were going to do. And that wasn't much of anything, if we're being honest. So match 7, Deonna Purrazzo versus Jordynne Grace. The stipulation is that if Jordynne Grace loses, she cannot challenge for the championship as long as Deonna Purrazzo has it. So earlier in the night, well, let's go to the pre-show. In the pre-show, Alicia Edwards got into the face of Deonna Purrazzo and said that she meaning Deonna Purrazzo, is going to learn what Jordynne Grace's true colors was that same night. This was after Deonna Purrazzo has said that she doesn't offer to shake or give hugs to anybody she doesn't respect. So when she offered to shake Jordynne Grace's hand, it was legitimate. When she tried to show her respect, it was legitimate. And this was after they had lost a tag team championship match where the two of them was working together. I don't know why they booked that match, but they did. And Jordynne Grace took the pin. Afterwards, Deonna Purrazzo tried to show some respect to Jordynne Grace, and Jordynne Grace refused. It seemed like it was going to be the beginning of a heel turn. And then Alicia Edwards, I guess, was trying to bring out the worst in Jordynne Grace, but she ended up just getting squashed. So Jordynne Grace squashed Alicia Edwards on the Go Home show before having a pretty good match with Deonna Purrazzo and losing. Now, she lost to the Queen's Gambit, which is a package pile driver off the second rope. Now, Jordynne Grace, she has been stuck in this position for like 3 years now, and she has officially left Impact. She's now a free agent, and she says she's going to pursue other outside the ring activities or whatever. Basically, she's going to see if WWE is willing to give her some money because now she's not a pig anymore, and she's hoping that AEW, or with this new Collision thing, she can get a paycheck from them. If not, she'll be back in Impact. That's pretty much what it boils down to. I don't have a problem with her being, in NXT or on AEW. I think she fits AEW, if we're being honest. I think they could use somebody with a unique look like hers. And she'll have plenty of time to do all of her bodybuilding stuff. WWE, she'll have to take time off to do all the bodybuilding stuff. But in AEW, she could do both, It's not quite as flexible as Impact, because Impact tapes and blocks. So, but she still will have plenty of opportunities to do things. And I think that's what she wants. So she wants the big fat payday of AEW. But we'll see if she gets it. If you're Tony Khan, do you sign Jordynne Grace? The juggernaut Jordynne Grace. Like a 3-time knockouts champion or whatever the hell she said. The matches that they've had against each other have all been pretty good. They told the story of Deonna Purrazzo having a 3-0 record over Jordynne Grace. And it was up to Jordynne Grace to finally break this streak, this new streak that exists. Of course, like I said before, she's failed. But they've had better matches than this. This match was okay. It wasn't terrible. But they've had better matches than this. And the story going into this match was Jordynne Grace saying that when Mickie James when she was supposed to have the match with Mickie James, which was her rematch, and Mickie James ended up getting injured and was subbed with Deonna Purrazzo, that she said that she was ready to be the face of the division, ready to carry the company, and that she was the best wrestler in the world. And she says, after losing to Deonna Purrazzo, she says she had to sit back and recalibrate some things. So she says, tonight, it's not just a matter of if I lose, I'm not the best in the world. I'm not ready to be the face of the division, and I'm not ready to carry the company. If I'm not the best, who am I? And it was very Dean Malenko-ish. If you guys remember that storyline from WCW where Dean Malenko, kept losing and decided to take his ball and go home. That's what it feels like they're doing here with Jordynne Grace, but it's just a way of writing her off TV. Apparently, her contract had already expired, and she was already gone to pursue other interests. This is fine. It was a fine match. Deonna Purrazzo got a nice little rub here by being sort of the one that, I guess you don't want to do it. You want to use the term ended Jordynne Grace's Impact career? I guess you could, right? I guess you could say she did, because technically she did, This is it. So this is fine. Apparently, I don't know if they're going to go with Trinity versus Deonna Purrazzo immediately, or they want to wait. I would suggest they wait until, Trinity gets a little bit more momentum. You don't want to go there immediately, right? So, Jordynne Grace will probably be popping up in AEW at some point soon. Get ready, especially since AEW has a pay-per-view coming up, and they like to have surprises. So, there it is. Not saying much, but I'm saying it all right there. I think she's going to end up in Impact. End up in AEW. All right, the main event of the evening, PCO versus Steve Maclin, a match I was not interested in watching. So this storyline is built up over Steve Maclin. Before Steve Maclin even wrestled and won the world title, he was having his problems with Scott D'Amore. And he continued to have problems with Scott D'Amore on the Go Home show. Steve Maclin has been getting into wild fights with PCO ever since PCO was noted to be the number one contender. So the previous week before the Go Home show, PCO is jumped by Maclin and Champagne Singh, who is a bum, and Mahabali Shera, who is also a bum. He's a bum with a great look. And so Steve Maclin thinks, okay, I whipped PCO's ass. He's not coming back. I'm going to name my own contender for the title. And he names Champagne Singh. So Champagne Singh comes out thinking he's the number one contender for the world title because Maclin said so. This, of course, is wrong. Scott D'Amore has come out. They have this really long talking segment that was completely not necessary to be that long. But the gist of it is that Steve Maclin is paranoid and thinking that Scott D'Amore does not want him as the world champion because of their past problems, when Scott D'Amore just wants him to be a champion that represents Impact correctly, or in the way that Scott D'Amore thinks Impact should be presented. He says that PCO is still there and still will be wrestling at Against All Odds. So there's no need for Champagne Singh. So at that point, PCO reemerged and they have a fight scene to go off the air. So at the show, the match is no disqualifications, PCO versus Steve Maclin, and it ended up being a bloody match that was 100% stupid. At one point of this match, Steve Maclin he stapled PCO's mouth closed with a staple gun. Stapled his lips closed. Oh my God. PCO then woke up, fought that off, and then started pulling the staples out of his own mouth with a pair of pliers. Bruh, I was disgusted. Then PCO busted open Steve Maclin. And bro, I thought this was like some shit out of Mortal Kombat or one of those really violent, stupid video games or a really violent and retarded comic book. Like something out of Invincible. Like, it was so much ridiculous blood. I was appalled at this stuff. Like, bro, it's so much. It was literally overwhelming. In the end, Steve Macklin hits his finish on top of some cinder blocks. Cinder blocks. That's how far they went. A guy had to get DDT'd on some cinder blocks in order to lose this match. I'm like, oh my God, bro. So, of course, PCO lost, and Macklin is still the world champion. Afterwards, Macklin demands that Scott D'Amore come out there and put the title around his waist as he promised. And to be fair, Scott D'Amore did promise that if he defeated PCO, he would put the title around his waist and shake his hand. So Scott D'Amore comes out. He gives Steve Macklin the title, wraps it around his waist. Then he offers his handshake, and Macklin refused the handshake, saying that the handshake should have happened when he won the title. And so now he doesn't respect him. He's not going to shake his hand. Scott D'Amore is kind of frustrated by this, but it's like, okay, well, whatever. And then, out of nowhere, Bully Ray sneaks up behind Scott D'Amore and strangled him with like some chicken wire. And I was like, what on earth is going on? Like, I know that, they've had their issues too. Scott D'Amore is putting himself in the middle of these storylines, that big porker. In any event, they strangle Scott D'Amore. Then they get a table, and they're going to light the table on fire, because of course they will. This leads to people running out there. I think even, what's his name? Ray Waltz. He leaves commentary to try to help. He ends up getting lighter fluid sprayed in his face. And at this point, they light the table and powerbomb Scott D'Amore through it. Bully Ray then gets really close to a prone Scott D'Amore and tells him, "You're the guy who brought me in here, but I'm never leaving." He's going to destroy this place. He's going to destroy Scott D'Amore. He's going to ruin everything. And there's nothing anybody could do about it. Then he raises the arm of Steve Macklin, which I'm guessing proves that they're now buddies, that they're now friends. And we just brought back Scott D'Amore from a long injury due to him being attacked by wrestlers, if I remember correctly. And he just can't. I guess it was the same guy, wasn't it? Steve Macklin. Look, I'm getting confused. Why do we need to have fucking Scott D'Amore in the middle of this storyline? Like, he just got beat up, so it's not like he still has sympathy. He just got beat up. I don't know. The flaming table spot was a surprise, but since Impact is doing all manner of retardism right now, I'm not surprised that they did that. But the flaming table was far too much. Cinder blocks, far too much. These are the only kind of matches PCO can have, because PCO is 60, and having a regular match is probably not going to work out for him. So having these big, ignorant spectacles where he bleeds all over the place and gets his face stapled is the best thing he could do. He's in his Terry Funk era, I guess you could say. He's middle-aged and crazy, except for he's more like early stage dementia and crazy. Why would you do this to yourself, bruh? Like, I don't know. In Impact, by the way, you're going to go through and staple your face in Impact? You're going to get paid in jelly rolls. What is going on here? Bro, you're going to get paid in hopes and dreams. There's no way I would be getting staples in my face in Impact. That's nuts. Why would you do that? Why would you do that? Anyway, I enjoyed the Go Home show a lot more than I enjoyed the pay-per-view. Impact has a great deal of talent. They have Taurus, they have Laredo Kid, they don't use them. I don't understand how you have those two guys on your roster and they don't have a match. but you managed to find a match for Cody fucking Deaner. Cody Deaner has a match. Taurus doesn't have a match. Laredo Kid doesn't have a match. I'm floored by that. That's stupefying to me. But I'm not the booker of talent. You know, they just brought in another young lady by the name of Jody Threat. I have no idea who she is or what she's supposed to be. But she's also wasn't featured on this pay-per-view. Did nothing. Seemingly came in, debuted, won a match, and disappeared. Which is seemingly what these wrestling companies are doing now. They're not really putting any effort into their stories anymore. I think she was involved with Alicia Edwards, if I remember correctly. But I don't want to speak out of school. But I'm pretty sure she was involved with Alicia Edwards. I'm talking about Jody Threat. Killer Kelly not having a match sucks. Masha Slamovich not having a match sucks. No talk at all about Mickie James. Just no word of whether she's actually coming back or not. Whether she rode off to the sunset and she's done or not. I guess they don't want to give that little trinket away. Maybe have her return as a surprise or something. I don't know. But ultimately, the lazy battle royals and fatal 4-ways and 6-man tags for the number one contendership, it sucks. You know, it's stupid. Tell stories. You're really good at that. Do character work. Some people are really good at that. You know, Johnny Swinger has been doing a really good thing with his character lately, where he's trying to win a certain number of matches so he can get a title shot. You know, because that's what he was promised. So we'll see if that actually comes to pass. So Impact is still not something I plan to follow week to week. But, there's always a but. Impact 1000. They having a 1000 episode special. And I plan to do that show probably live. Probably do a live review of that show. I'm probably going to forget this. And probably not going to leave it to you guys to decide, for starters, if you even want that. Or do you want a regular Thursday live stream? In which case, I will try to make it happen. But that's going to be very interesting. That Impact is going to have 1,000 episodes in the bank coming up soon. And that's very special. I figure we might be able to commemorate it with a live stream and we actually get to see what they do. And, you know, it's going to be tough because the 1,000 episodes or whatever, it's probably going to be taped just like the rest of the episodes. When that one in particular probably should be a live show. You know, if you're going to spend money on any type of show for Impact, 1,000 episodes of Impact TV, you should go ahead and be live for that. Spend a little cash on that one. Don't need to be tight-assed on that one. But they will be because it's Impact, of course. But so if you got this far into this video, let me know if you want to do a live discussion on Impact 1000. If enough people are interested, then that's what we will do. So in any event, thank you for your time. I'll talk to you guys later, man. Peace out.